everyone, mabuhay. My name is Jun De Laron, and today we're going to tackle about the travel and tourism in different eras. But first, what is hospitality and what is tourism? The term hospitality predates the use of the word tourism. It is derived from the Latin word hospes, which encompasses the word host, guest, and stranger. The word tourism first appeared in an Oxford English dictionary in 1811. Other dictionaries suggest that it was derived from a Greek word for a tool used in describing a circle. In a sense, tourism intrinsically involves a circular itinerary where tourists return to their point of origin. Others also suggest that it came from the Hebrew word Torah, which means studying, searching, and learning. Now, let us take a look at the status of travel and tourism from the ancient days. Early tourism, exploration and travel are essential to humans. People have been traveling even before the concept of tourism was developed. People in the past traveled only for business and religious purposes. History tells us that merchants traveled extensively to trade products. When the Sumerians invented the money, the cuneiform writing, one of the earliest writing systems, and the wheels, the trading industry flourished. Romans and Greeks were well-known traders in the past, and as their empire grew, travel became necessary for them. The improvement in first-class roads, inns, and communications aided the Roman travelers. One of the best roads in Rome is the Appian Way. Perhaps it is the oldest roads that still exist. It was one of the ancient Rome's most significant military and economic road. The Romans also employed relays of horses, and every 6 miles, a stable could be found where travelers could change their horses. Because of this, distance of more than 100 miles could be reached in one day. Leisure travel existed already, but it was not yet widespread. It was limited only to the few and affluent families, like Greeks who traveled to witness the Olympic Games, which was first held in 776 BC, and Romans who traveled for pleasure and to visit friends and relatives. Religious travels were in the form of pilgrimages to places of worship. The cities of Rome and Jerusalem were the famous sites for pilgrims in the past. Pilgrimages were taken to fulfill a vow, as in case of illness or a great danger, or as retribution for sins. Aside from Rome and Jerusalem, Galatia and Spain were the foremost destinations for English pilgrims in the 14th century. It houses the Santiago de Compostela Cathedral, reputed as a burial site of St. James, an apostle of Jesus Christ, and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Medieval period. The fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century brought a decline in travel. Travel became difficult, dangerous, and demanding. Roads were not maintained, and it became unsafe for travelers. Thieves inflicted harm on those who attempted to travel. No one traveled for pleasure during this time. Only the pilgrims and the crusaders traveled this time. Tourism in the Renaissance and Elizabethan era. In this period, few renowned universities were developed. The British introduced travel for education, which became popular in the 16th century. During the reign of Elizabeth or Queen Elizabeth I, young aristocrat men who were aiming for a position in court were encouraged to travel within the continent to increase their knowledge. Gradually, the practice was adopted by other men on a lower scale. The education of a gentleman should be completed with a grand tour. The tour includes visiting different cultural centers on the continent for 3 years. True expressed as an educational activity, the Grand Tour became more of social business. Pleasure-seeking young men traveled predominantly in France and Italy to enjoy European cultures and social life. Venice, Florence, and Paris became the key attractions at this time. Grand Tour was institutionalized for the upper class in the later part of the 18th century. Aside from educational travel, people also traveled for health and wellness. Sick people traveled in sought for a remedy for their illnesses in medical baths or spa, a term which is derived from the word spa, which means fountain. Entertainment was added, and many of the watering places became a resort hotel. Baths in France, Italy, and Bohemia became fashionable in 18th and 19th centuries. The Great Bath is part of the Romans Bath complex in Bath, England. It is more likely untouched or mostly untouched and remains an example of what bathhouses were like in the ancient Rome. Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution brought a significant changes in the type and scale of the tourism development. Aside from technological changes, it brought social changes that made travel more desirable. The increase in productivity, job regularization, and growing urbanization give workers time and more motivation to go on a holiday. People at this time usually go to the countryside or seashore. It led to the creation of the working class resort near major industrial hubs. 19th century. The advancement of technology made travel more convenient, and in the earlier part of the 19th century, the railway system and the steam power were introduced. This advancement in technology were made travel more convenient and comfortable. The new means of transport increased transport carrying capacity and reduced travel costs. Initially, the railway was not created to promote travel and tourism. However, during the mid-19th century, the railway system provided a convenient and comfortable transport service for pleasure travelers. Photography and instructional materials such as guidebooks and travelogues became popular. Among the guidebooks printed, the Baedeker guidebooks were the most popular because it does not only contains basic informations, but it also includes details on how to visit the destinations and suggested tourist attractions that are worth visiting. In the later years of the 19th century, tourism became more organized and it became an institution. Cox and Kings was the first known travel agency, but they only catered to travel needs of the British Royal Armed Forces. And in 1841, Thomas Cook opened the first leisure travel agency, the Thomas Cook and Sons, to help Britons improve their lives by seeking the world. His first excursion trip occurred in 1841 between Leicester and Loughborough, with 571 passengers provided with meals and entertained with brass music. And from 1855, Cook offered a guided vacation abroad. He catered mixed clientele, from rulers of states and royalties to average representatives of the middle, lower middle, and working classes. In 1866, he introduced the circular notes which were accepted in the banks, hotels, restaurants, and shops. This was, in effect, the first traveler's check. Considering his contribution, he was named the father of modern tourism. 20th century. The development of the travel and tourism industry has been interrupted at several critical points in history, including World War I and World War II. During the World War I, tourism became stagnant, but after the war, the demand for the international travel increased and a large-scale migration occurred. New forms of mass communication such as cinema, radio, and television have increased people's curiosity and broadened their knowledge and their interest in travel. World War II led to an increase in travel interest influenced by the advancement of aircraft technology. In 1958, Boeing 707 jets was introduced and the air travel for masses began, which brought a decline of sea travel. There was also an increase in private car ownership, which affected to the coach and rail services. The privatization of cars freed people from schedules and fixed routes for public transportation. It also contributed to the growth of excursions and short vacations. Business and trade flourished in developed countries, which led to the demand for conferences and incentive travel on a global scale. New tourist-generating countries arose as economic power shifted between countries. Europe and the developing tourist-based economies of Asia, such as the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, have been benefited from this influx. 21st century. At the start of the century, global events like September 11, 2001, World Trade Center New York City bombing, the war in Iraq, the tourist attacks, and health scares hit a decline in international travel. The century also brought a massive technological transformation as the increase in internet usage revolutionized travel services. In the 2000s, Online travel bookings multiplied exponentially, and in 2014, global leaders Expedia expanded to include brands such as Hotels.com, Trivago, Hotwire Group, and Expedia Cruise Ship Centers. And now let's go to the origins of tourism in the Philippines. The first inhabitants of the country roamed around even before the Spaniards came. This was shown in the pieces of archaeological evidence. They traveled to trade, for diplomacy, or war. Spanish occupation. During the Spanish occupation, travel were limited only to the education, employment, and religious pilgrimage. Only few people can travel to the foreign country because it was expensive and time-consuming. For example, traveling to Spain could take 1 year via the Manila-Acapulco Galleon Trade Route. In the later part of the 19th century, Spaniards introduced innovations such as railroads, electricity, and telegram. Manila was open to world trade, and non-Spanish business people, diplomats, and seamen began visiting the city. In 1989, Hotel de Oriente, the city's first deluxe hotel, was opened. American occupation. During the celebration of American independence on July 4, 1912, the Americans opened the Manila Hotel, which became the city's landmark. Americans did mineral exploration in the country's mountainous regions. They transformed the remote rural town of Baguio into a city, and because of its cold temperature, it became the popular destination, especially during summer. The journey from America to Manila usually took 2 weeks to ocean liner, or by ocean liner. But when Pan American Airways launched Pan American Clippers, the travel time was reduced. In 1935, the first Trans-Pacific flight was inaugurated. Americans reached Manila Harbor in just 59 hours aboard the China Clippers. Earliest tourism organization in the country. In 1952, the country's first tourism association was organized. The Philippine Tourist and Travel Association, or also known as PTTA, is an association of all existing travel establishments that serves domestic and international travelers. The government recognized the potential of tourism and funded the association to promote the country's tourist industry. In 1956, the government, through RA 1478, created the Board of Travel and Tourist Industry, or also known as BTTI. It was a policy-making body that supervises, regulates, and controls the tourist industry. In 1973, the BTTI was reorganized into the Ministry of Tourism, now known as the Department of Tourism. In 1974, DOT hosted international conferences and sporting events such as the Miss Universe Beauty Pageant, the World Bank International Monetary Fund meeting, and the Ali Fraser or Trilla in Manila boxing match respectively. Awareness for tourism grew, and Filipinos saw a respectable career in tourism. So, in 1977, the University of the Philippines opened the first tourism degree course in the country. And in 1989, DOT launched its first promotional campaign with the slogan, Vista Island Philippines. In the 1990s, local aviation boosted tourism in the country when budget airlines entered the business and more provincial airports were opened for international flights. This accelerated tourism in provinces, and Boracay Islands became a famous international resort destination. In 2000, the celebration of a public holiday was moved to the nearest weekend, creating the 3-day holiday break or long weekends that gave Filipino more time to travel around the country. In the year 2003, Philippines launched promotional campaign Wow Philippines, and it was launched to compete with Amazing Thailand and Malaysia Truly Asia. Wow means World of Wonders for tourist attractions, Wild Over Water for water-based experiences, Walk Our Worlds for the promotion of Intramuros, and so on. In 2010, tourism in the country faced 3 major crises. First was the criticism of the marketing campaign Pilipinas Kay Ganda. Many criticized the use of Filipino language in the slogan, as it might be not recognized in the international markets, while others criticized the design for it resembles Poland Tourism Organization's logo. The campaign was pulled out weeks after it was launched and the tourism secretary was replaced. Secondly, all Philippine carriers were banned from flying over European airspace because they failed to meet the international safety standards, and at that time, the Philippine Civil Aviation Authority cannot provide the necessary safety oversight. Dutch carrier KLM was the only airline that operated between Philippines and Europe. The ban limited the number of European visitors until it was lifted in 2015. And lastly, was the hostage-taking incidents at the Carino Grandstand when a police officer held a busload of tourists from Hong Kong hostage. The mishandled rescue operation was broadcasted live around the world, and the reputation of the Philippines suffered. Visit Philippines 2003 was a worldwide campaign endorsed by the WTO as a 24-month promo in 2002. It served as an umbrella program for WOW Philippines. It was again used in 2015 and it was declared as a Visit the Philippines year, and in 2016 it was Visit the Philippines again year. In 2010, Filipinas Kay Ganda was a short-lived promotional campaign launched in 2010 but was received negatively. The campaign was rejected in less than a month and after it released. Then, It's More Fun in the Philippines was launched by itsmorefuninthephilippines.com website, and it went viral 2 hours after it was launched. The new tagline, It's More Fun, was used by Filipinos in creating memes to express their sentiments, emotions, and opinions for the country. Experience the Philippines. Former Secretary Wanda Corazon Theo launched a 60-second promotional video with a new slogan, Experience the Philippines. The video was inspired by the story of a Japanese retiree who resided in the country. It ended with a voiceover, "You don't have to see to feel your home," and the big revelation that the foreigner is blind. It's More Fun in the Philippines. DOT relaunched the It's More Fun in the Philippines campaign in 2019 with a few tweaks on the logo. The new logo features a new font and a wave with colors depicting the Filipino products, while the previous logo had the Philippine map. Next, or currently, is the Love the Philippines. The Department of Tourism re-unveiled a new tourism campaign slogan last June 2023. Love the Philippines, replacing the 11-year-old It's More Fun in the Philippines brand in a bid to offer not only fun but also meaningful travel experience. And that's all. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless us all.